Lorne Michaels and some other execs came to see a Sunday company show at the Groundlings, and I was performing in it. And me and I think 3 others got asked to fly out. We auditioned on the stage, where the monologue is, and it was my it was the most nervous I've ever been and a dream come true. And then a couple weeks later, I found out that I didn't get it, and I was devastated. And then a week or so after that, I got a call from my manager who said Seth Meyers, who was the head writer at the time, wants to meet with you to potentially be a writer for the season. And I flew out there and had the craziest meeting where they asked me no questions about writing and just were like, I think I ended up asking him the other day. I was like, that was kind of like a red flag meeting, right? Like where it's just like you just check to see if this person's a cool hang,
Yeah.
because you already kind of know their work from their audition. And he was like, totally. I ended up getting that job, and but yeah, I was just a writer on it for the season. And then that summer I came back and I shot Workaholics, and
Mm.
Workaholics got picked up, and at the same time I didn't get asked back because I was clearly like, I would like to perform.
Yeah.
Um
Do you feel like you were there kind of did you spend a lot of your time there wanting to be in the cast or sort of like,
yeah, definitely. I mean,
yeah,
I was also at the same time, I mean, I was 24. I was learning so much. I was there at my favorite television show, like
yeah,
just
it must be
trying to,
very surreal and yeah,
so surreal. And just also like, because I went through Groundlings and they teach you how to write for your own voice and develop that. And then you're thrown into the mix of some of the greatest sketch comedians. And now you're trying to figure out how to write for Kristen Wiig or Keenan or Bill Hader, and it's just very different. So it was a lot of like that was sort of my college experience was Groundlings, and then SNL was like, you know,
yeah, it's crazy. Yeah, I remember I talked to Paula Pell on this podcast about she had a very long run on SNL,
yeah,
obviously. And I think even she had to kind of get over that wanting to be a performer thing. And she ended up, then not performing really until much later in her career. But
right.
you, I guess it wasn't totally your decision, but you ended up getting to perform much sooner on Workaholics than if you had stayed at SNL. So do you think about that? Like, are you happy that they didn't want you back after one season, or how do
At
you?
the
I'm sure it
time,
didn't seem great at the time, but
yeah, at the time I think when I heard the news, my parents were hanging out with me and they knew I was getting a bad call, and I just sort of needed to put it somewhere. And I'm not this person at all, but I literally took my laptop and I threw it across the room because I was like, I need to throw something that will make me also sad later that I threw it and
yeah,
potentially damaged it. But I was so sad. Like I was just like, oh, that dream, that's the only dream I ever had at that time.
yeah.
Like I didn't have, oh, maybe, like the idea of like being in a movie or something or being in a TV show was kind of, it wasn't like, oh, I've never thought about it, but like SNL was the only goal I
But
had.
also, like, that's what happens after you're on SNL, right? Like in your
Yeah.
dream, probably, because that's how
Right.
it played out for so many great people.
Right. Right. And I found out later that that summer when they were making the decision that there was a lot of great people in the cast and the crew that did go speak to Lauren Michaels to say, she should be in the cast. And
Oh,
and and I went to see a show the next season because my friend Taryn was then on in the cast, and I wanted
yeah,
to go
Taron Killam.
support him. Yeah, I wanted to go support him. And I sort of went in my head again, this is like such a 25-year-old movie moment. Like I was like, I'm gonna go back to see if I'm like saying goodbye to it or going over to Lauren Michaels to be like, give me a shot, man. I
Yeah.
got this, which is so like sweet and sad to me, but
Yeah.
very sweet.
And how
Like,
did it play out?
so I went, and then all these, like I was just telling you, some of these writers and some cast members said, hey, we all kind of went in and talked to Lauren about you being in the cast.
Wow.
And it just was a no-go for him. And I'm sorry. And I was like, wow, that's like the best, you know, that's the best compliment to get, is that people went to bat for me and they didn't have to. And whether I fit into something that Lauren thought should be on the show or not. Like, it's his decision, and it was a no for him. And to me, that just kind of made me go, there's nothing more I can do then. And I earned some of the respect of the people that I admire the most. And that means, at the time, maybe it didn't mean more to me because I just really wanted to be on the show. No, it meant more to me. But I was like, what more can you ask for? That's it. Like, it's if it's a no, it's a no. And thankfully, there was other stuff coming down the pipeline, although I will say it was crazy because we shot Workaholics. So I'd done SNL, we shot Workaholics. It was a year before they put it on the air. So by then I was like, I don't have any more money and need to make money.
Yeah.
So I actually went back to my old job for like
Oh, wow.
6 months, which was being a receptionist at a talent agency. So I was just handing actors their paychecks
Oh my
and like,
God.
and they were like, "Weren't you at SNL?" And I was like, "Yeah."
That's humbling, right?
It was very humbling experience.
If you could go back and do it again now that year at SNL as a writer, do you think you would approach it any differently or handle things any differently, or do you feel good about what you accomplished there?
Honestly, the one thing that I did that I'm like, "Oh, would I change this?" But I don't know that I would, is I didn't give away a lot of my sketches that performed pretty well at the Groundlings because
Hmm.
I always wanted to do them, and I was hopeful that one day I would be in the cast and then get to do
Yeah.
them. So I held off on a lot of things and just started writing fresh, as opposed to, I think a lot of people are like, "Well, I did this sketch in Second City and it did well, so I'm gonna give it to Fred Armisen or something." And I was always like, I'm gonna hold off on some of those. And because of that, I'm sure, it affected the fact that like I didn't end up staying. But I don't think now in hindsight, I don't think I was meant to stay there. I think I was meant to go on this other path.
Is
Uh,
there a sketch that you did get on that you're particularly proud of, or that you just can't believe actually made it onto the show, or anything like that, that when you think back on it?
there was a sketch I got on in my first episode, and so I was
Oh,
really
wow.
proud of that. Yeah, I think they thought I had bigger potential than I ended up having.
What was that sketch?
It was a sketch called, "And Now Your Mom Talks to Megan Fox," and Megan Fox was the host, and it was just Kristen Wiig playing a mom, like, with a little short haircut, and she was folding laundry as, like, her daughter was about to come downstairs and hang out with her best friend Megan Fox, but it was just a mom just being like, "So what's going on with the transformations?" Like, the movies, like,
Yeah.
just getting stuff wrong that moms do, and
Yeah.
and it was the one sweet thing about it is I put a lot of nuggets in there for my mom, like
Mm.
stuff my mom says. Like my mom just always goes, "ETJ, enjoy the journey." And like just enjoy the journey. And so I got some things in there that were personal to me and my
Yeah.
mom, and
What did your mom think about that?
she was really excited. She loved that. And also I got Don Pardo to do the "And Now Your Mom Talks
Oh,
to
yeah.
Megan Fox," and I still have the piece of paper that I wrote down the words that he said, and
Oh,
so,
that's very sweet.
I'm such a dork. I'm such a sentimental dork. I keep all that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, Megan Fox, I guess, was your first one. You had some really big hosts. You mentioned Betty White. I was
Yeah.
looking Taylor Swift. You had both Ryan Reynolds and Blake Lively that season separately.
Oh, that's
It's kind of
right.
insane.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, are there any did you have any interactions with any hosts during your
Uh,
time there that stand out as being particularly insane?
I will say Jude Law was on, and we had a sketch that went to dress but didn't make it to air, and it was the craziest sketch. And I was so bummed when it didn't go to air because it was like one of those that did really well at the table read, and then dress. I think it was just like audiences were like, "What am I watching? This is
Yeah, sometimes a table
bonkers."
read it plays better with the comedy people, right?
Exactly, exactly. And like the audience was just like, "Huh?" So at the after party, I remember like going over and getting a cocktail and just, you know, licking my wounds. And I was like, "Oh man." And Jude Law walks over and he's like, "I've been looking for you." And I was like, "All your life?" And he's like, "No." He was like, I was like a baby writer. So I was like, "Why was he looking for me?" And he's like, "I'm gonna do another movie just so I can come back and promote and do that
Oh,
sketch." And I was like, how kind are you that you took time to say that to me? Like, that's so nice. So
That is so sweet.
that was very crazy. We I got drunk. I got drunk so many times. That was my college experience, but Kesha was a musical guest at one point and I got drunk on the dance floor with her and I grabbed her hand and I raised it to the sky and I said, "We're going to live forever." I screamed. So I did a lot
That's a
of
memory.
yeah, I did a lot of stupid stuff with the host because you go from being like, "Oh, can I have your autograph?" to someone to being like, "Oh, Ashton Kutcher is just sitting on my couch in my office and
Yeah, you're
we're"
just like hanging out, your peers.
Yeah, yeah, and I'm like, "You know we're actually not peers, right?" Like, I'm a dorky kid that, like I mean, I yeah, there's just it's just such a wild environment to be thrown
Yeah.
into.
Well, it's a very cool experience to have had, and then go on to do so many other incredible things that you've done. Um, is hosting still on your, sort of dream list now that you're you are where you are in your career?
I don't know, I mean, I would've been like, "What?" if I heard this when I was 18, but I mean, it's such an honor to get to host. I feel like I have so much anxiety performing that I'm like, "God, would that, like, destroy me?" But maybe I would just take, like, 3 Ativans and just try to go for it and not slur
Yeah.
my words. But it feels, like, so exciting and also probably the most nerve-wracking thing.
Yeah. Well, that's why the hosts end up, being your peers, right? As a lowly writer, because they're relying on you, and
Yeah.
you're like gonna be the one who helps them not fall on their face. And
Yeah, they're like, "Make me look good, please." I know. I mean, I feel like I would never be able to say no if it happened, and I doubt that it will for some reason. It just doesn't feel like the way I'm going now, I'm like, I just would really love to keep directing. I'll still act in some stuff, but
yeah,
I do feel
you're
like
feeling like you want to be more behind the scenes
I
now,
would love
or
to I would love to. It just brings me so much joy. It was um uh the most creatively fulfilling experience I've ever had.
yeah. I did want to ask about one of my favorite acting performances of yours, which I think we also touched on last time. But is from Sort of Trust. But that was, of course,
Oh,
before
thanks.
Lynn Shelton, the director of that film, passed away so
Yeah.
sadly. And I know, she was someone who you looked up to as a director. So, how much was she on your mind when you were making your first movie?
She was very much on my mind. My first day of shooting, I had my T-shirt that says "Watch Lynn Shelton movies,"
Mm,
and I actually went to breakfast with her, um, like shortly before she passed away. We were in Boston shooting something, and she was prepping something, and we went to breakfast, and she was just I was just so excited for her. She was so in love with Mark Maron, and she was in such a good headspace. And I told her, I really that was the first time I told her, I really want to direct something. And she was like, Jillian, no hesitations, do it. I will be there every day to support you. Whatever you need, I'm a phone call away. I'm there for you. You got to do this. And I just really kept thinking about her during shooting and feeling like, I'm not like a deeply religious person, but I'm a spiritual person. And I do feel like my dad passed away 12 years ago, and there's so much of him in this film. And there's so many things that I was like, what would Lynn do in this moment? And it's so sad that she's gone to me. I honestly, more than anything, I'm just like, she did so much with such small budgets and made such unique films. And I would have killed to have seen what she would have done with a really healthy budget, and she was
hmm.
on her way to that. And so I'm bummed for the world that we didn't get to see more Lynn Shelton movies.
Yeah.
But I definitely felt a sense of like someone's got my back up there, and hopefully, I know if heaven exists or whatever exists that she's one of them because I adored her and we had a really good friendship later in her life.
Do you already know what the next movie you would want to direct is if you're able to?
Yes.
I
It's
don't really
something
expect you to tell me, but I
I
was just
can't
curious
I can't
if it's
say
something you're
much
thinking
about
about.
it. I can't say much about it. And again, it's so funny because when I was set to do Summer of '69, we had a certain date, and then Kind of Pregnant came up at the same time, and it would have
Mm,
conflicted, and I was like, "Oh no, like I want to do this movie. It's so funny and with Amy Schumer and but doing this movie and then the dates pushed for Summer of '69 and I got to do this. So you never know what's going to go first, but I do have
hmm.
something in mind that I'm pitching right now that I would really like to make next and feels like a great second film post Summer of '69.